Hello friends, again I am before you with the model answer of yesterday's question. If you remember, yesterday we gave a question from philosophy of religion. So now let us see what was that question and what can be the model answer for that. Today we will be giving a question again from socio-political philosophy, and then we will give the model answer tomorrow. So yesterday's question was like this: Is God a necessary being? Examine critically. Now, here, basically, first we have to describe what means by God being a necessary being, and then what are various arguments for and against this. Because definitely, some theories or some thinkers or some arguments support this God is a necessary being, and some oppose it. So we have to examine that, and then finally we have to critically evaluate the whole idea and concept, and then conclude it. So now let us see how to deal with this question in about 300 words. Uh, See, concept of God as a necessary being steps from classical theism. So this is important because classical theism assumes that God is all powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, and uh, his existence is a necessary thing basically. So, necessary being stems from primarily from classical theism and metaphysical rationalism. A necessary being is one whose non existence is logically impossible. So, this is the meaning of this God, a necessary being, that a being whose non existence is logically impossible, existing by necessity of its own nature. This is another implication of that God exists by necessity of its own nature. This idea of God, a necessary being, is central to many ontological, cosmological, and moral arguments for God's existence, and has been extensively defended and critiqued also. So, on the one hand, there are philosophers who have defended it, on the other hand, philosophers who have criticized it in both Western as well as Indian philosophical traditions. So, now let us see who are for and who are against this argument. So, then we can finally critically evaluate the whole thing. Now, arguments for God as a necessary being. So, first section we will deal with that. Now, first is ontological argument, which was initiated or started in a very systematic manner by Saint Anselm in his proslogan, that is his work, his book basically. Now, Anselm defines God as that than which nothing greater can be conceived. So, this is his definition of Saint Anselm, that God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. And then he concludes that a being that exists necessarily is greater than one that exists contingently. And therefore, God must exist necessarily. See, this is what his conclusion is finally. So, from his statement, he has concluded that God must exist necessarily. Now, a modern version of this um, uh, ontological argument, Elvin Pettinga, in the book Nature of Necessity, if it is possible that a maximally great being exists, that is omnipotent, omniscient, morally perfect exists, then such a being exists in every possible world, including ours. So this is a modern argument, modern ontological argument, or format of reformed ontological argument given by Elvin Pettinga. Now, Leibniz cosmological argument that also in a way supports God as a necessary being. Now, every contingent fact must have a sufficient reason. This is his argument, cosmological argument. Now, the ultimate reason must lie in necessary substance. That is God, whose essence includes existence. So, what Leibniz concludes is God's essence itself includes existence. So, therefore, God's existence is necessary. Now then another Aquinas third way in the book Summa Theologica, he has written, from the existence of contingent beings, he infers the need for a being that must exist. That is a necessary being, and that is God. So basically, if you see Leibniz argument and St. Aquinas argument is uh, almost similar kind, but yes, both derive that God must exist and exist as a necessary being. In Indian context, let us see, because I keep on usually telling philosophy of religion, if you are quoting Western thinkers, and if relevant Indian thinkers are there, you need to quote, you have to see some, show some comparative study also and show that. Now, in Indian context, Nyaya Vaisesik, that is Udayan's Nyaya Kusumanjali. Udayan was a Nyaya philosopher, and he has written Nyaya Kusumanjali, posits Ishvara as an eternal, uncaused, omniscient being, necessary for explaining cosmic order and karma. So he also explained that God is a necessary being. Then we come to Ramanuja's Visishtadvaita. Sees Narayana as the Sagun Brahma, both material and efficient cause and essential necessary being. So this is Ramanuja's concept of necessary being. Then Sankara, that is Advaita Vedanta, while denying a personal God in Nirgun Brahma, accepts Brahma as unchanging, eternal, and ontological necessary reality. So Shankara also, though in a different way, he also says that yes, God is a necessary being. Now let us critically evaluate the whole concept of God being necessary being. Now Immanuel Kant, he has rejected ontological argument altogether. He has said that existence is not a real predicate. One cannot define things into existence. So this is his criticism, and he says both ontological and cosmological arguments are irrelevant and fallacious and cannot be accepted. So that was Immanuel Kant's view. David Hume, another philosopher, in Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion, he held that no being's existence can be logically necessary. Causal reasoning is based on habit, not on necessity. In fact, if you remember, Hume has denied causality, he has denied induction also, logical induction also. So accordingly, he has said that no being's existence can be logically necessary. Bertrand Russell and Jael Mackey, what they have said, modern philosophers, argued that invoking a necessary being is a question begging. The universe itself could be a brute fact. So basically, they say that this is not answering the question. This is, you are again reframing the same question. So therefore, necessary being, God being a necessary being, cannot be accepted as a true proposition. Anthony Kenny and Richard Swinburne highlight the ambiguity of necessary existence outside logical or mathematical contexts. They on the basis of logic and mathematics, they have denied that. Buddhism and Charvaka also, if you remember, reject any form of theistic necessity. Charvaka straightway says that there is no such being exists, and Buddhism has come up with dependent origination and Chanikvad. So both they deny necessary being, God as a necessary being. Now, in conclusion, the idea of God as a necessary being is central to many theistic systems. Yes, we have already explained, offering metaphysical depth and explanatory power. However, it remains philosophically contested. Both sides' arguments are there, with objections from empiricism, logical positivism, and non-theistic Indian schools, challenging its coherence. That is, God being a necessary being is challenged by them. The debate hinges on how one conceives the necessity, whether as a logical, metaphysical, or conceptual, and whether it can be meaningfully applied to existence. So basically, this concludes our answer for this question from philosophy of religion. Now let us see tomorrow's question from socio-political philosophy, what we will be answering tomorrow. This is the question. Distinguish between positive and negative liberty. in 300 words. Now, this question, that is distinguish between positive and negative liberty, we will be discussing and answering tomorrow. So we'll meet again tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's video. Thank you, one